It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Agronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, just popping in Sunday morning with a quick disclaimer. We had some technical difficulties during the recording of the show, and you may hear some audio burble, but apparently the server we were connecting to was slowly dying, and as a result, the show abruptly cuts off at the very end. So just wanted to prepare you for that, and there's still some interesting conversation to happen. It just ends a little unexpectedly. Thank you. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 253. Tonight I'm joined by Ammo.
Hello.
Ashgar.
I'm not first.
Kodra.
Huh?
Tam.
Pation.
Thalen.
Hey there.
People are either going to get that or they're just going to be confused as hell. And I don't think we want to explain it either way.
Yeah.
It's been a crazy week for me.
It sounds like it.
I have not done much. Yeah, so like for the uninitiated or the people that don't follow me, like we've had a bunch of tornadoes and then a bunch of flooding because rain makes flooding. And yeah, I can't go see my parents right now because Highway 169 is closed between Tulsa and where I'm from. So that's a thing. I am perfectly fine. Like for I've had lots of people ask if I'm okay, and like where I'm at, it would have to be Noah's Ark style flooding in order for it to actually get me. But the low-lying areas, they're struggling, and it's made moving around a bit weird. But anyway, so I've had like a lot of sleepless nights this week, so I may be a little loopy today. I don't know.
Sounds like a fun time.
Just amazing fun. I did watch a tornado from my front porch, so that was kind of fun. I mean, it was a safe distance, but like, you know, it was kind of interesting. It was mesmerizing to watch it. Something that happened this week that I had no time to follow is that Final Fantasy XIV had a live letter and released a benchmark. So someone please fill me in as to what I'm going to be dealing with when the game goes live in a month and some change.
TP is gone. Good riddance.
So Melee uses mana for everything?
Nothing.
Nothing, it's just timers?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They just do stuff, you know, with cooldowns and on the GCD. Pretty much the way it works now, except when you're, you know, doing your AoE thing that slowly drains all your TP.
Wait, what did they do to AoEing then? Like, is there anything to limit how much AoE I can do?
Doesn't seem to be.
Not that we can tell.
Interesting.
I mean, AoE is better when there's sufficient things. Single target is better when there's not. In general, like, it's rare that a situation comes up where I need to be AoEing, that I need to be AoEing long enough that it's really an issue.
I mean, as a longtime TP user, it only ever seemed to get in the way.
Yes.
Like, it never really seemed to make an interesting decision happen. You're either basically like struggling for TP or everything is going fine, and there's no difference between. It's just like the amount of time that you're playing dictates whether or not you run out of TP.
So this also means maybe that one Astrologian card that currently gives TP regeneration will be turned into something useful.
That would be nice. That'd be really nice. One of the other big changes is that roll abilities are going to be severely cut down. Tanks will have the most with 7, and other classes will have fewer. It seems likely that things like the ranged ability to restore MP and TP are probably going to get combined.
That would make sense.
There's others that I think they're just going to be gone, like Mana Shift.
Protect is going away entirely, too.
Yes.
It will be ever so slightly missed.
Oh, and all of the debuffs that cause enemies to take extra damage of certain types. Those are all going away.
Yay!
That makes me happy, because like that made some bad calculations happen and people get left behind.
Yeah, like basically they're looking at pretty much all the things that cause people to demand certain classes, certain jobs in a group, and mostly getting rid of them.
Makes me wonder if Trick Attack is on the line or not.
Yeah, it seems like it really ought to be.
I gotta say, like, these changes so far have made me happy. Is there anything that's gonna make me sad?
There are no job quests, except for one at max level.
Yep. There are role quests instead. So 1 line each for tank, healer, I guess melee DPS and caster DPS. And
I will say that having done the warrior quests today,
They're amazing.
I'm not sure that thing I just said is going to make you sad.
They're amazing, Ash. I'm just saying. Breaking bigger boulders was a great idea.
No, not that quest. The Stormblood quest.
Ow.
Yeah.
Where you're playing a matchmaker for, that one.
Yeah, that one's horrible. Like the breaking bigger boulders one, that was perfectly fine. The let's learn how to rage harder quest.
Curious Gorge falls in.
But Curious Gorge falling in love, no, it's horrible.
I'm only halfway through that one, and yeah.
It sounds like they slightly reduced some other abilities, like Lancer or Dragoon no longer has 2 complete combos. They each branch off of the same primary attack. I don't actually... What?
Sounds that way.
Sounds
the
that way.
only
anything?
class that is like that
I
right
don't
now.
know.
The only class with more than one combo starter.
Like it would? Yeah, I don't know about...
I don't know. Sounds like they also want to bring the healers slightly more in line with each other.
Yeah, they said they want to focus more on pure healing, which confused people and made people think that they mean they don't want healers to DPS anymore. But apparently that is basically a translation of the term that is used for healing that's just healing rather than barriers and other stuff. Healers are still going to be DPSing because they showed off a new white mage ability that's or at least talked about it, where they get a black lily and it powers some big DPS move. But
where does that put scholars?
They're going to have some more regular healing capability. I don't know that their barrier abilities will be reduced any. Not entirely clear, but mostly they're it sounded like they're mostly just trying to fill the gaps in the healers' toolkits and allow them all to be able to do all the things.
Yeah, I think they said white mage will get an instant heal or more instant heal or something.
Yeah.
Mage already has so many instant heals. They'll have cooldowns though, I guess.
Yeah. Along the same lines, they were talking, the tanks, they want to kind of reduce the delineation between main tank jobs and off tank jobs. All the jobs should be able to do everything equally well.
I feel like they already did a pretty good job of that.
Yeah. It sounded like they felt like there was still a little bit more to do on that, but yeah.
I know that, class, Dark Knight, is sometimes viewed as lesser for its lack of a group mitigation cooldown.
Yeah.
You can save a single person with the Blackest Night, but you can't save a group that way.
Yeah. Speaking of Dark Knight, Dark Arts is going away.
Yay!
And didn't they say for tanks they're getting rid of enmity generating combos and everything just gets enmity now?
Yeah. So they're getting rid of explicit. They're getting rid of the DPS stance. Yeah, they're getting rid of the DPS stance. Basically, you will have one stance, and when you turn it on, it causes you to generate more enmity. That is all that it does.
That's all it does.
It is the thing that you turn on. It does not reduce your damage output. It also does not increase your healing or decrease damage taken. It's purely enmity.
So if you're going to tank, you turn it on. If you're not going to tank, you leave it off.
Right.
Instead, they're moving the damage taken thing into a trait.
Yeah. It's tank
It's going to improve tank soloing somewhat significantly.
Yeah, by a lot. The I'm going to do less damage, but I'm going to generate threat thing was horrible.
Machinist is just a whole new class.
That looks pretty amazing, though. They get a robot.
The current state of Machinist is a little questionable, so sure, sounds great. I'm ready to see what version 3.0 of this class looks like.
Yeah.
They want to emphasize the machine part of Machinist, so they get all sorts of little toys and stuff like that, and a robot.
Yeah, you get Edge's tools.
Yes.
Edgar's tools.
Or Edgar, yeah. You get it. You get the Bioblaster and the drill. No
And
chainsaw,
auto crossbow, and there were chains. That's like a
there were
chainsaw,
chains.
right?
That's the first part of chainsaw.
Any other major changes?
They're changing how fates work. Like, it won't affect existing fates, but the fates for Stormblood, like, basically it sounds like since there's other ways to level now, Fate's current role as a primary source of XP, like, no longer really makes sense. So there's going to be, like, it sounds like there's going to be, like, fates that you unlock access to or something as you, like, do chains, maybe. But there's going to be currency from them that you can spend to get things.
Yeah.
So when they say there's other ways of leveling, they're not just talking about Darkest Dungeon, are they?
I mean, I think that's one of them.
They also are scaling side quests to level this expansion.
Oh, that's true. Side quests all scale to the level that your current job.
And aren't
these
they
trap quests currently do?
Aren't they putting in something where like you can repeat content?
We still have no word on what that is.
Yeah, we don't really know how that works.
They didn't talk about that or the trust system yet either.
Like, I don't think they're like removing XP from fates. I think it's mostly like that's not enough to make them like interesting to
Currently,
people.
that's not enough to make people do them.
Yeah.
It hasn't been since the start of Heaven's Ward, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, like, I think of us, I'm the only one that's gonna be sad about that because I enjoyed leveling in Fates once upon a time and kind of wanted a return to that. But yeah.
Didn't you also burn yourself out leveling in Fates during this?
Yeah. Yeah, because it was so grindy. And I mean, it's about the same level of grindy as Darkest Dungeon.
That's fair.
But yeah, I'd be surprised if they like reduced or removed XP from the new fates. Just there's going to be the currency that you can get from it, so there's like an actual reason for people to go do them, even if they don't care about the XP.
Yeah, I would love to see leva quests like actually be a thing for leveling, like it was previously, because that was a steady way of leveling. If you got tired of doing those things,
system that hasn't been used for battle class in 7 Ward and not used very well there. It's still used for crafting.
Yep.
So they also released a benchmark, and I did download it and I did run it, and I got extremely high, but I could not figure out how to play with either of the new races.
Like, is that character creation?
I did, but like I couldn't figure out how to change from human. Like, that seemed to be all that it was letting me do. So I clearly failed at something.
When you go into character creation, there's a button below the drop down that is make a character, and then below that is another drop down that lets you change an armor set. So between those is a button that lets you make a character.
It probably asked you if you wanted to load existing character data, and then you would just tell it no.
Okay.
Yeah, you just tell it no.
I saw lots of pictures of people like playing with, their werewolves and their bunny people.
Hrothgar are definitely cats.
Yeah.
Yes.
Werecats? They're Thundercats. They really are. They're Thundercats.
They're big, beefy cat dudes who can have horns.
Because precedent, I guess.
Yes.
Do we know much more about Gunbreaker at this point?
We know a little bit.
Yeah.
They showed it off on screen.
They demonstrated both Gunbreaker and Dancer. It's got like charges that it builds, and then you can pull the trigger on attack for increased effect.
This does not work like Dark Arts.
Yeah, it has some ability. It has some abilities that like you can use on party members. It looked like it had a heal that was like not just.
It looked like it had a really strong heal.
Yeah,
Paladin is a really strong heal, so there's some precedent for that too.
Yeah, like it looked like he could shield and heal other like party members by shooting them with the gunblade.
Works for Squall.
I can't quite heal with arrows, but it's close enough.
Pretty sure if you want to heal with arrows, you have to actually go back to ESO.
Probably.
And even then, you should use the healing staff.
Dancer looked somewhat technical and complicated.
Super fiddly, I hear.
I feel like we know more about Dancer than we do about Gunbreaker because they showed it off a little in a cleaner way.
Yeah, like they actually showed Yoshida playing Dancer for a little bit.
Its big thing is, not surprisingly, it has dances. It's got a short dance. It's got a technical dance. Press the dance button, do a few steps according to whatever the gauge says you should do. And you press the button again, and you complete your dance, and you get a buff, and you do 1,000,000 damage to anything you were pointed at. You spent basically 3 GCDs on it, so hopefully 3 GCDs worth of damage.
Hopefully.
That's a lot of damage.
It was a lot of damage. Like a surprisingly large amount of damage.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And as a dancer, you can pick a party member to be your partner, and like when you do things, they get buffs, and apparently they have something they can do that gives you buffs.
You generate meter based on their abilities.
Right, their attacks cause your fan meter to raise. And based on the buffs I see, I want to be the dance partner all the time. It was a crit buff. I play Bard. I like crit.
Thalen likes hitting stuff.
Dancer looks like some of the technical nonsense that I have not seen since the EQ Bard.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
I mean, that was a playstyle that some people really liked and prided themselves that they could keep 4 auras up at a time. Some of them could keep like 6 auras up at the time, just if they use the right ones.
Oh, song twisting.
I mean, if those people really want, they can play Horde. They can do totem twisting. It's going to be a thing again.
It will be. Just for Classic. Anything else major come out of the live letter and or benchmark?
Mostly a wait till next week because the embargo for the media events drops on the 29th.
Yeah.
At which point we'll probably know a lot more about a lot of things.
Yoshida is making a custom left-hand controller that you'll be able to purchase.
It's a custom G13.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's weird.
It's what he uses to play.
Interesting.
Square Enix needs a good sound tech. If you can work in Shinjuku, Tokyo, there's a job opening. They demonstrated that they definitely need someone.
I feel like I don't have the willingness to live in another place or the skills that are required. So, on a whim this week, I decided to patch up Crowfall, and I don't know exactly why I patched up Crowfall. I backed this game, and largely I backed it because I figured if it ended up making into something, it would give me a cheap copy of the game. And up until this point, it's largely been a tech demo.
Uh-huh.
And it's been, I don't know, it's probably been over a year since I last attempted playing it. And now there's actually kind of a game. And I'm not sure if it's a good one or a bad one, but there's a game. It kind of reminds me of this weird blend of Dark Age of Camelot, EVE Online, and Landmark. It has some gorgeous character classes, and that's really the thing I've got to give them credit for. Like, their character class designs are pretty cool. So I ran around as a little guinea pig, and I ran around as a stone dwarf, and both of which were kind of cool. I played a little bit of Knight, and I played a little bit of Champion, Knight being sword and shield, and Champion being just a big, leapy, two-handed axe-playing person. What was that, Kodra?
How focused on this is it on the PvP?
So, I don't know, okay? Like, I've not encountered any PvP up until this point. It has 3 factions. There's basically Order, Chaos, and Balance. And I went with Balance, which looked like the Hibernians. Like, it was a green background with a gold tree. So, since I was a hippie in Dark Age of Camelot, I went with that one. As far as I could tell, there's no class and race structure divided by these factions. It just seems to be like whichever faction you choose is what you end up in. You've got a bunch of starter islands, from what I can tell. There's like these little warp gates that take you back and forth between realms. The early tutorial area basically leads up with you finding your faction's temple, which allows you to teleport to other areas. The mobs all basically have a upper bound that they will let you get to. So like level 1 mobs or rank 1 mobs are good through like level 5, and then they drastically taper off experience wise after that. It's a lot of being dropped in a sandbox environment and having to figure out how to Minecraft your way through building a bunch of weapons and gear that you're going to ultimately need. So like your early stuff is building crafting tools and a decent weapon, and then doing some attacking, and you toggle back and forth between crafting mode and, well, actually harvest mode and attack mode with Z. So, I mean, that's all. It feels very similar to a lot of sandbox games that I've played. The thing that makes it interesting, which is also probably going to be the deal breaker for most people, it appears to be 100% drop when you die. You keep the gear that is on you, but everything that was in your inventory drops and is sitting on the ground on a tombstone, which is why it reminds me of Dark Age of Camelot. It's because you leave like this little tombstone on the ground, and I don't know if this is lootable by other players. I don't know if this is lootable by enemies, but you have to basically make your way back to your corpse if you want your loot. So far, nothing that I've gotten is unique gear. It's all just like crafting materials or things I had crafted. So it feels like you can probably like recover from losing gear. There is a bank system, but like your bank storage is like really small. So I get the overall impression that they definitely want that to be a game mechanic, that you're going to constantly be losing your stuff and having to go reclaim your stuff if you somehow die. I spent probably a good hour and a half this afternoon trying to clear a camp that I happened to wander into and died in a bad place in the middle of 3 spawns. And that was definitely a feeling that I had felt before in EOC or EQ and DOC. I'm not sure if it's a good feeling, but it's definitely doing a thing. There is apparently enough gameplay there that like people are doing. When you start a character, you're given a choice of 3 realms that you can roll on. There is a realm that's basically just like your own personal sandbox that you can do anything with. I have that may be the version that I had played before, where you're just like wandering around aimlessly figuring out how to craft materials and things like that. The middle one is kind of the newbie experience, which is structured leveling experience, crafting experience, and then the final one is what is essentially the equivalent of like seasons in Path of Exile or Diablo, where there's like a campaign going on. And I think that's the one where a lot more PvP happens. I'm still not entirely certain if I like the game or not, but I put in, I don't know, probably 4 hours. Got to, I think, 5 and 7 on 2 different characters. I never actually did loot all of my gear off of my tombstone. I managed to loot enough to get me started again, but it definitely feels like it's going for that old school corpse recovery vibe.
So if you get to your tombstone, you don't get your gear back?
Okay, so looting in this game is an item at a time.
Ultima Online style.
Ultima Online style. So yeah, like you open up your tombstone and you have to right-click items in your inventory to transfer them over to your inventory. And I did not have enough time to loot all of the stuff off my corpse.
What do you mean not enough time? Was it like mobs were going to come kill you?
Mobs were actively attacking me because I could not clear this camp. So like I finally just, Leroy Jenkins my way into the camp and looted enough items that allowed me to keep going. Like, so I needed a couple crafting items to get started again. So I did that. I ran in and like focused on a couple items and I ran away again. And that gave me enough to start doing stuff again. But yeah, like under pressure looting is definitely a mechanic that they specifically say that they want in the game, based on like the posts that I've read saying, why can't we just have, one click loots all? It's interesting. Like, so definitely dying in a good place is an art that we used to have to do, and they're bringing back. So if you can somehow break away from the camp and die on the outskirts you're far more likely to recover your stuff than if you die in the middle of a camp. I'm still not 100% certain that it's going to be a game that is ever going to really be a popular game.
I mean, it sounds like it's nostalgic for a bunch of games I never played.
Yeah. I have no idea how good the PvP combat is. I'm guessing not super amazing. Only because the combat doesn't feel really fluid.
So one of the resources
you have, like, so for the champion berserker or whatever kind of class I was playing, you had rage and you had stamina, and there were different uses for both. But it also felt like in the middle of the combat, there were plenty of times when I didn't have the resource I actually wanted to do the abilities that I wanted to do. And it wasn't necessarily I am making interesting choices sort of scenario. It's just I need to sit and wait around for my rage bar to tick up enough to use another ability. Stamina is heavily used in the harvesting aspect, and you very quickly get to the point where you can't harvest an entire object in the world without having to stop and let your stamina regen.
Did you have to sit down and take a bite of food to regenerate it?
No, you just have to wait. However, there is food in the game, and as you get hungry, your regens slow down. So you're constantly kind of having to find food. But in harvesting trees, you're getting a pretty good stock of apples to stay eating something. The biggest problem that I had was what little progress I made through the game. I had to hit forums and I had to hit YouTube videos to figure out what I was missing, because the game really does nothing to tell you what you need to do now, which is, I don't know if that's a feature or if it's just a lack of a good tutorial.
Both.
Yeah, I mean, like, in some cases, people consider that a feature. It took me forever to figure out how to craft anything other than the basic items that you start with. And it involved me finding a crafting machine, which was completely obtuse to find. I had to go find it in some player-made town. And even then, I'm not sure if that's what's intended, or if I just happened to stumble across one of those first. You would think in the temple, which serves as like a faction hub, there would be crafting machines, but I never found any. It mostly served as there's some vendors, and there's a resurrection shrine, and teleports to go to other realms. And that's another weird aspect of this game, is when you die, you turn into a crow, and you have to fly back to the dragon statue that represents your faction. And in many times that means going back to the temple that is your faction hub. So that was weird. There's a giant beam on the map pointing you towards where the nearest faction shrine is, but there was really nothing to introduce me to what my faction idol was. Apparently it's a dragon of some sort, so that's a thing. I mean, ultimately the game has moved past tech demo, but I don't think it's quite ready for prime time yet either. And I'll probably get some hate from what is, I'm sure, a very strong community that loves this game, but I still don't exactly get it. Like, there's a game there now.
It does sound like the sort of game that the people that are into it would be really, really into it.
Right. And okay, so now I have to talk about the Eve aspect. This game has offline skill training.
Uh-oh.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
So you have talent points on your character, and that's fine. But then you have these account-wide skills that are learned, and that's basically, there's 3 different categories that you can work on. There's combat, there's crafting, and then there's exploration. And you can have a primary and a secondary, and the primary gains at a higher rate than the secondary. And these appear to only happen while you're offline, and you appear to gain massive amounts of these while you're offline. So at least it's not a situation where, oops, I finished a skill and now I have spent several hours without anything queued, and now I feel like I'm too far behind the curve. You just get points that you spend in trees, but it like I never knew that was a thing until I watched a video telling me that the first thing you want to do is select one of these things to be training down, and they seem to make massive differences. Like, they affect things like in the crafting tree, it's like the percentage of success of item creations.
Wait a second, percentage of success of item creations?
Yeah. So, like, most of your basic items are like a very high percentage, but even in the second tier, I was starting to get things that were like only 75% of being able to create an item.
What is this, Monster Hunter?
So, yeah, like, I have a feeling that if you probably just AFK played this for several months before you actually played the game, you'd be in a better state than a brand new player. So it's doing some stuff. It's making some weird choices. It's kind of a weird amalgam of a bunch of things I've experienced before, and I'm not entirely certain if it's a good amalgam. But, as I said, and Ashgar protested, it is a game now. It's not just a character creation system with a sandbox to wander around in. So there actually is a game there. I don't know if it's a good game, but it's a game.
So a quick tangent, coming off of something you said a while back. It's not on our board, but it probably won't take long. You were talking about, like, you're harvesting wood and, getting lots of apples to keep yourself fed. And it got me thinking, I want to see a survival game that tracks the, like, individual vitamins and nutritional things in
No,
food.
you don't.
No.
Yes, I do. And you have to make sure you get enough of the right stuff, or you end up getting like scurvy or pellagra.
Oh my god! Where the hell am I going to find enough thiamine to make it through the day?
What's that? You're only eating corn? Are you treating it with lye? No? Ha, pellagra.
You don't want this game. Nobody wants to play this game.
This would be a great comic game. Like, it's how bad you're gonna lose. Basically, a modern version of Oregon Trail, but this time it's trying to make a nutritious meal for your travelers.
I honestly don't know if I want to play this game, but I want it to exist.
I guess that's one way to put it.
Thiamine
But yeah,
Quest.
I just started thinking, like, eating nothing but apples probably wouldn't be all that healthy. You'd
No,
probably
it's
start to have
hilarious.
issues eventually.
So, like, one of the first things that you can make is like some steak tartare, and like there's a note on it saying eating enough of this will make you sick. And like, it didn't happen to me, but I kind of want to see what happens when you get sick from eating steak tartare. The only problem is I never figured out how to not make steak tartare, like make actual steak. Like that didn't seem to be a thing I could do. Like, you would think, like, you have wood all over the place. You apparently now have meat. Just skewering it and sticking it over the fire should, in theory, make a steak.
Yeah.
But that was not a thing I could do. I could only lightly sear it. Okay, so the next topic on here, Total War 3 Kingdoms. I'm not sure whose topic this is because I can't click on it right now, but whose topic is this?
That one's mine.
Okay.
Anyone who plays Total War games?
Possibly. I don't know.
I played a little of the Warhammer one.
I also played a little of the Warhammer one.
This is I really love the Total War series. It does the thing that I also used to like from Assassin's Creed, where it's like an interesting history lesson along with some other stuff.
Edutainment.
Yeah, kind of. In the case of Total War 3 Kingdoms, they're retreading some well-known ground, but it's still cool. It's still a bunch of, they have a bunch of like random historical things. They've clearly learned a whole lot systemically from Total Warhammer. Like, you can play on thing that made me laugh. You can play on Records of the Three Kingdoms mode or Romance of the Three Kingdoms mode. And the main difference is that your hero units are basically superheroes, Dynasty Warrior style in Romance of the Three Kingdoms mode. But also, that's really fun. It was really fun in Warhammer to have your single person just like swing their halberd and have everybody go flying. They've added a bunch of things to the combat map UI that are good. Like if you have a unit selected, you can see symbology over enemy units that are well equipped to fight them. So you don't send your, cavalry into a bunch of pikemen by accident. It's done a lot of smoothing out to support different gameplay styles. So like diplomacy is not just nonsense, at least what I've played of it. And sieging towns and cities is not just nonsense. You can actually do those things and have that be meaningful and useful. It definitely gives you a nightmare of a map. Like the previous Total War games I've played, there are like little protected alcoves that you can build your forces in. But you're in the center of China. All of the provinces connect. There's like one or two convenient mountain ranges to block travel, but you've got a lot of space on all sides to deal with, which even further emphasizes the whole diplomacy thing. Because if you just go like try to rampage across the countryside, you'll have enough people trying to stop you that they'll just gang up and stop you.
Hey, it's like the actual story of Chronicles of the Three Kingdoms.
Yeah.
Just saying about getting into a land war in Asia.
But there's a bunch of incremental improvements to the kind of Total War formula. I really like it. What little I've played of it, it streamlines a lot of things that, like, it's recognizably a Total War game, but it's also a lot better at onboarding. And it's got super helpful. It's got actually like a bunch of, hey, here's what this does tooltips, things you should know. And the maps that the battle maps that I've run into are a lot more interesting. I've been able to use the terrain a lot more than I usually do. Total Warhammer was really good about this too, just like more interesting. You don't have like, this is an open field that you're fighting in.
I was going to say, does the combat feel any... Like, that was kind of my issue when we played Total War Shogun, was like, it was very cool, and I loved the overworld parts of it, but whenever I got into a battle, I felt like this is very slow.
I feel like it's intentionally a little slow.
I mean, yeah, I guess I could see that point.
Like, I guess what I'm saying is it's not trying to be StarCraft in its RTS aspects.
I wasn't sure if that had changed at all.
It's a little faster. Like battles resolve quicker. Like once a winner is established, it doesn't have the thing where you can have, or at least as far as I've seen, it doesn't have the thing where you can have won a fight but still need to kind of grind it out. It tends to recognize that the battle is over a lot sooner than other ones have. But there's still a lot of there's a lot of opportunities for placement. A lot of my favorite tactic of having archers hiding in a forest across a river is still really strong. They've added the ability to interact with the environment. So I wound up, and this went really badly for me, but I did the thing where I hide my units in a forest and basically ambush the enemy, and it's bad for their morale to get ambushed. It means that my people are all in good positions, etc. So in this case, when the first volley of arrows came out of the tree stand, the enemy archers all lit their own arrows on fire and burned down the forest, which I've never seen in a Total War game. It makes sense. Like, it's a sensible approach. Like, somebody's shooting arrows at you out of a forest. Okay.
There are a few notable uses of fire in Romance of the Three Kingdoms, so it makes sense that they would have added it.
Yeah. And turns out having all of your units in a forest as it's burning down is bad.
Whoops.
But it's interesting. It's interesting to see them add new functionality, new other things. I like the hero units are cool, optional, which is nice. I don't really know what else to say about that one, but it's fun. I like that it's a recognizable formula, and so like by skill transfer, but I don't necessarily have. It's not necessarily just the same thing. Like, there's notable differences that change the way I approach it.
So, topic that we discussed last week has kind of developed a life of its own.
I blame Godra.
And that is World of Warcraft Classic.
So I
And
was
the funny thing about this is, like, I have reached a point where basically I'm going to stop playing until it launches in August, and then this week, like, that channel just kind of blew up.
That's wise of you, Bill. I would not like. I would suggest that maybe you should wait and inflict that on yourself once, like, that character's gonna last a bit.
Right, exactly. Like, I got one character to 10, and then I started playing with another character, and I'm like, maybe I should just wait till August.
So it turns out World of Warcraft has done a lot in 15 years to make itself a much better game.
Mhm.
It's done a whole lot of work to remove some undesirable behaviors.
Undesirable, you say?
It turns out one of my favorite things about World of Warcraft and MMOs was undesirable behavior that got rooted out. But the fools that they are have opened up a portal back in time. And so now I'm going to go do a time heist. And I am going to go and I am going to stealth so many runs. Because it turns out being able to take a full party of people who can stealth and sneak in to the very precise points of a dungeon where bosses are, kill those bosses, and sneak out, like, it satisfied my desire for a coordinated heist. And I've missed that, and I'm gonna get it back.
I think you're mad. I also already know all the skills required to participate in this plan.
Gonna stealth some Ubers.
Maybe.
Stealth some Elbers. We never actually stealthed Ubers.
There are pretty good reasons why you can't really do that.
I know.
But it also made me remember that we absolutely used to do 10 hunter runs of Upper Blackrock Spire. And it was insane. Like, we'd be on voice chat, and we would coordinate on a single target while the others were being trapped, and, like, everyone would time their aim shot at exactly the right moment, and targets would just fall over. It felt like a firing line. There's some stupid stuff you can do with vanilla.
They made the game a better place. They made it so that players couldn't cheese their content. But cheesing content is fun.
It is. It is fun.
Like, it's actually interesting because another friend of ours, Elian, was talking about shaman tanking and linked me to this guide. And the guide has in it, like, this discussion about how, yeah, this isn't really viable, but we can make it work. And, like, there was a shaman tanking community in WoW where they would meet with other people who would let them tank up higher level stuff. Like, there were things that you could technically do, but they were outside of the bounds of the normal. Like, they were unintended gameplay. And it feels like we've had game designers spend a lot of time trying to get us away from doing unintended gameplay, which is fine because it leads to an uneven experience. Like, there was a reason why I got to go to so many Upper Blackrock Spires and other DPS didn't.
Because you could pick the lock.
No, because I had a key. You couldn't pick that lock. You had to have a
that
key.
one wasn't
Okay.
pickable.
But that key you got from you had to do Lower Blackrock Spire in a 5-man in order to get the parts for that key. And
Do you remember the nonsense of dropping out of groups before you kill a boss so you could get quest credit for killing the boss, and then trying to hurriedly get an invite back before it kicked you out of the instance?
I don't remember that.
Like, so originally Upper Blackrock Spire you could bring 20 players into.
I was not at... so I know you could used to bring 40 people into any of the instances. I was not at instance level before the cap was 50.
Yeah, like, I only remember us bringing 20 players in. I don't ever remember trying to bring 40 in. But I do remember there was some shenanigans that you had to do where you dropped group real quick and then got an invite back as soon as the boss was killed so that you didn't get kicked from the instance, but you did get quest credit for the kill. I'm sure Tam probably remembers this too.
Oh yeah, it was dumb.
It was real dumb, but it was entertaining. And they even had add-ons designed to keep an invite list that as soon as the boss was over, it could spam out invites to the people that left to the quest credit.
And you know what's not coming back, though? WoW's old add-on API.
No, it's not, and that's kind of sad. Which means there's going to be
the best.
Wait a second.
There's going to have to be a brand new set of add-ons because, like, while this feels like Classic, it's still modern WoW. Like, it's the API is modern WoW's API.
Except they are specifically disabling some things that would not have been possible in Classic.
But does this mean that I can't write cast macros?
This means old decursive is not going to work. It means Whispercast is probably never going to work.
Oh.
Yes, I know.
Wow, they managed to make it even worse than vanilla.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember I had some add-on that gave me a way to macro heals so that it would just heal whoever was lowest health in the entire party.
Gonna work?
So, like, there's a bunch of
I already have
add-on...
a working version of DBM, I think.
Yeah, there's a bunch of add-on writers that have come out and said that, yes, without a doubt, they will be supporting Classic. So it's going to be a totally different batch of add-ons than what we used back then.
We're going to need to have somebody figure out how Whispercast works.
But you're not Alliance, so it doesn't matter.
There's still marks. There are still buffs that people will ask to be individually cast upon them.
Like what?
Mark of the Wild?
Any luck, your druid has Gift of the Wild. He's willing to spend it on you. I know that's a book. It drops. But it drops in ZF. So...
Man, I've already warned lots of people. I am going to be running Dire Maul over and over and over and over. I want my dragon book.
Good old Kelsarar.
So I can get Kelsarar. Like, if I get that, I'll be happy. Because disturbingly, that's gonna remain one of the most effective tanking weapons all the way through until you can get bindings. But bindings don't exist. Bindings do not exist.
First MC run, you're gonna kill Baron, get it, and the binding is gonna drop.
I mean, that's fine, but the other one won't ever drop because, I mean, Tam has had this problem. I'm stuck on a different binding than the one Tam needs, and I still periodically run it on my warrior and have never seen it. Whereas I've seen 4 of the pieces off of Ragnaros drop.
Eye of Sulphurus or whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, I've made one of those hammers. It's going to be nonsense. Like, I know it's going to be nonsense, but I'm going to enjoy the nonsense. So is this pre or post subtlety being godlike?
Post.
Aww.
Well, no, this is that patch.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the patch that is the best time to play a rogue in any MMO ever.
Okay. Well, this was the time that I really liked playing a rogue because subtlety was fun as hell.
Yeah.
Does that mean that there's going to be some lower, or what is it? What's the Iron Dwarf dungeon that drops the ridiculously fast weapon?
Emperor Run. Oh, Gorin Direbrew?
BRD?
Or not Gorin Direbrew, yeah. Still
Fell
BRD.
Striker. Fell Striker.
Oh,
Fell Striker was Ubers.
Fell Strikers from Ubers.
Yeah.
It's a
I thought you were
epic
referring to
off
the,
of the beast.
The Shank.
No, it's not.
No, it's off of Rend.
It's off
Oh,
Rend.
it's off of Rend?
Yeah, I told you, Belle, you're gonna be in. If I get dragged into doing this, you're gonna live in Upper Spire with me.
That's fine. I mean, there's lots of tanky bits in there too. I'm gonna need the shield off of one of the bosses in there. I think maybe the final boss, the dragon shield, because it's like the best blue tanking shield for a long time.
I like Red Dragon Shield?
I need to find a lot of warlocks and offer to tank their Felsteed runs.
I will be warlock.
Because that boss that you have to fight for Felsteed drops one of the few defensive guns in the game.
I remember that because I think it dropped when I did my Felsteed quest.
Can you re-challenge that boss? Or is it just a one shot?
I think it's one shot per person.
I think so.
And I remember trying my best to tank it for everyone that I knew needed it. Because I wanted that damn gun. I don't think there was a better defensive gun until Nax, maybe, I think had a defensive gun. Or a defensive ranged weapon. Because it didn't necessarily care that it was a gun. I don't even remember what the magic number for defense was. Was it like 265, 260, something like that?
I remember it was weird because blocking was pushing some of those numbers off. Like, this is why it was so important to be a tank, a warrior.
The warrior, you have shield block.
Yeah. Or wait, is that from TBC that I'm thinking of that? That might be from TBC.
I feel like that was TBC.
I know TBC got really complicated too because you could have a mix of defense and resilience and become crit immune.
That was how druids had to do it.
You had to push the crits off the table.
I do feel like we were making sure our tanks were crit immune somehow, but maybe we weren't. I don't know.
No, they absolutely had to. I remember before I set foot in... I mean, it wasn't hard to do.
Are you sure it was crit immune and not crushing blow immune? Because that's a thing again.
Yeah,
you
crushing,
forget.
Crushing blow is a thing until Wrath.
Crushing blow is what I'm thinking of, because crits just happen. Crit immune was way harder. Crushing blow immune was the thing that you absolutely needed to do.
Yes.
And it was still a fairly high number.
That point, I don't think druids could. The gear just didn't exist yet.
Yeah. But unlike warriors, I think in some cases druids wouldn't straight up die to a crushing crit.
No, because druids had 10 million armor.
Yeah.
A lot of health. What they would do, however, is stress out your healers more.
Yes.
I just remember before I tanked my first ZG, I made sure I was crushing blow immune.
The thing I said where I know all the things required to do this, I do still remember a lot of nonsense knowledge from this game. That never did me any good, because I wasn't raid tanking during BC.
I still remember how to key all the things.
I also remember that, because I made it my life's work to find every single key in the entire game.
Yep. Oh, you're going to be doing the hard mode Onyxia key.
That's not the hard mode.
No.
Believe me, it is not the hard mode.
Had they made it easier by this point?
You don't have to do a BRD escort. I hate
No, you just got to kill
escort.
50 billion
It's got to
dragons.
kill a bunch of dragons in Upper Blackrock.
That escort wasn't that bad.
Oh no, I have to run
Spend
Upper
more
Blackrock.
time in Upper Blackrock Spire.
Whatever will I do?
I don't know. I just remember back in the day, Horde bitching and complaining about how much worse their Onyxia attunement was than Alliance's.
It's because you have a group with a lot of people in it that need the attunement. It's not like they're a shared drop.
Ah, that's what it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
Well, because that mechanic didn't exist in the game yet.
Uh-huh.
Where the same thing drops for multiple people.
Like, every Dragonkin, I think, does drop 2 eyes. But if 10 people in the group have the quest, it's not getting you nearly far enough.
I think it was just a lot longer for Horde 2.
Wait,
There's a
is that from the Leroy Jenkins room?
Leroy Jenkins was Onyxia.
No.
What?
Leroy-
No, it was the Whelp Room. Leroy Jenkins was the
Leroy
Whelp Room.
Yeah, that's right.
I remember helping
it's those
someone.
Dragonkin.
I remember helping
The very
someone
first
through
room of Upper
that.
Blackrock.
Because I still attempted to play both Horde and Alliance for a long time. And I vaguely remember doing the attunement on Horde side. Regardless, this is going to be interesting. I mean, and it'll be a story. It'll be a very interesting story. Ammo, are you going to join us in this nonsense? The correct answer is no. Like,
The correct answer is no.
Correct answer is no.
I'll just sit back and laugh.
Okay.
And maybe kind of miss my warlock, but I'll do my best to not fall into this madness.
I mean, like Grace is totally all in at this point because she
Wasn't
never got to
going
experience.
to. And then Kojo started talking after the podcast last week.
Hi.
I didn't do a lot of raiding, but I mean, I did play it from the start. It took me probably quite a while to get to max level, and I did some Molten Core later, but I don't know.
Oh man, then you totally do need to do this.
No. No, the correct answer is to not do this.
Yeah.
I mean, I got my Felsteed once, the hard way, so I'd say that's pretty good. I think once is enough.
Okay, since I have no gauge on where we're doing time-wise, I'm going to go ahead and steam on to the next topic because we got started super late. Games Workshop continuing New Leaf.
Yeah, it's been really interesting following Games Workshop for the last few years, which I've brought up a number of times. They really seem to be on this kick of, hey, what are all of the things that don't work for people in miniatures games? Let's see what we can do to fix them. And their most recent push in their accessibility is what they're calling contrast paints. It's a really cool. They're really cool. They're basically
It's technically a really fancy wash.
kind of. It's like they've come up with a formula that's basically a base coat and a wash in the same pot.
Huh.
That's weird.
And so
It looks real impressive.
they basically and they're like, look, I've watched a couple of videos on this. They take a fully unpainted model, they give it a primer coat. They're releasing 2 new primer coats with this that are supposed to match particularly well with this because of course it's Games Workshop. And then they just all you see on this video is somebody taking the contrast paint and painting right over the primer. And then when it dries, it's just shaded.
Huh.
Like they do a video where they're like, hey, we're going to paint this entire model with just contrast paints. And the video is like 10 minutes long and they have a finished model at the end of it. Then there's no cuts.
Witchcraft.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Basically.
But it's super cool to see because it takes one of those things that's like just getting started with this is really hard and turns it into paint by numbers. And they keep showing off like, hey, here are all of these models that were painted with just contrast paints.
I gotta say, like, Citadel colors have always been kind of voodoo.
Yeah.
Because they're just acrylic, but they perform totally different than any other acrylic paint.
They have a really good paint line. And they're making efforts to make their paint line better and more accessible. And I think that's really cool. I mean, one of the ones that I'm excited to pick up is, hey, we know that painting white sucks and is hard. So we made a white contrast paint that gives you like subtle blue tinted shading to accomplish shaded white.
Okay.
Like what? And they show off a Tau model painted with it, and it looks great.
It almost makes me wonder if they're effectively doing the same thing we used to do with future floor polish and acrylic.
I believe it.
Because, like, that used to give a really good wash that looked like you actually spent time shading it.
Yeah.
And we abused it, but it was kind of hard to use at the same time. So maybe they've figured out a way to perfect that thing. Because, like, the whole story there is, like, future floor polish is clear acrylic floor polish. So instead of watering down your acrylic paint with water and diluting the acrylic-ness of the paint, you dilute it with floor polish and it creates a thinner acrylic. But like, if they can somehow figure out a way to make that work better, then that sounds like they figured it out. I'm happy that they figured out how to be not horrible.